Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to the Go to the Source Kentucky State Data Center webinar. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Afterwards, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. At that time, if you'd like to request a question during the presentation, please use your chat feature located at the lower left corner of your screen. If you need to reach an operator at any time, please press *0. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded Tuesday, June 11th, 2013. I would now like to turn the conference over to Sarah Walsh, Knowledge Officer. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to see so many folks here on the line with us. As they mentioned, my name is Sarah Walsh. I work here at the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky. And I'm going to hand things over to Michael Price in just a moment. But before I do that, I always like to steal a minute of our speakers' time to tell you a little bit about what the Go to the Source training series is. If you've participated in one of our webinars before, this may sound familiar. You can just bear with me for a moment. Some of you are probably also familiar with the Foundation's Health for a Change training series. Through that series, we've really been offering workshops and webinars to support the work of emerging and established health coalitions and nonprofits, really folks like you who are doing the important work of promoting health and advancing policy here in the Commonwealth. This year we wanted to expand that effort and go beyond some of those capacity building services we've offered before to really address the needs of data users. If you're a researcher or an epidemiologist or a grant writer, if you're working in a nonprofit organization, if you got tasked with coordinating your health department's MAP efforts, if you're in charge of your hospital's community benefit plan, if you really need to use data, if you're a serious user, then Go to the Source was really designed with you in mind. And I always like to begin with my shameless plug for KentuckyHealthFacts.org. The Foundation launched this website in 2008, and it's designed to really provide anybody with an overview of the health needs and the resources in their community. It's designed to be useful for data pros, but also accessible for novice users. And in light of those constraints, we know sometimes you need to dig deeper and you need to go back to the original sources of information to learn more about them, which is what this series was created to do, to introduce you to some of the key health data tools and resources and the people behind those resources so you can access the information you need. And before we get started with today's talk about the Kentucky State Data Center, I just wanted to remind you briefly about where we were in the series. This is our 5th webinar. We've had 4 calls so far. The first one was on Health Landscape, which is a free web-based mapping tool where you can look at existing health information and even upload some of your own organization's data. Then we looked at the Kentucky Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System and some changes and updates that have happened with that data set. Next was the Kentucky Medicaid Pharmaceutical Utilization Guide, which was really an in-depth look at the medications being used and the prescribing patterns around the state. Then most recently we had to talk about the Kentucky Health Issues Poll, which is a public opinion survey that the Foundation co-sponsors with the Health Foundation of Greater Cincinnati, and OASIS, which is an online statistical tool that you can use to actually access the original data set from our Kentucky Health Issues Poll and other data sets that may be of interest to you. So it's kind of a cool web-based thing. All 4 of those calls were recorded just like today's call is being recorded, and archives from those webinars are available on our website. So if you missed them, you're not out of luck. That information is still available for you. And still to come next month, we have 2 more webinars in this series before we wrap it up for our inaugural year. I'm going to talk about our Kentucky Parent Survey, which was a new poll that the Foundation sponsored this past year to really understand what Kentucky parents think about health issues and particularly children's health issues. And later in the month, we're going to talk with Amy Swan about Kids Count's Data Center, that they are relaunching a new version. It's Data Center 2.0, where you can get state and county level health statistics on a range of issues that impact children's health. And coincidentally, Michael Price is very involved in that project. But he's here today to talk to us about the data center, so I won't make him get into that work too much. And my other shameless plug is please, please, please fill out our evaluation. This is our first time doing this Go to the Source series, so please tell us what you think about it. If it was helpful, we're going to look at repeating this in future years, possibly expanding it, looking at different data sources. But you're going to get an email from us tomorrow with a link to a very short evaluation. It's just a quick web survey. It takes a couple minutes. You are data people. You are my people. You understand how much we need that data. So please do fill out that evaluation and let us know what you think. So with all of that said, I want to dive into today's webinar. We're very fortunate to have Michael Price with us here today. He is Kentucky's state demographer and the Associate Director of the Kentucky State Data Center. If you're not familiar with the Data Center, they are part of the Urban Studies Institute at the University of Louisville. And Michael has been serving as a demographer there since 1981, so he knows his stuff, trust me. And unfortunately, I hear he's going to be retiring soon, so we're delighted that he's here and able to assist us today. But during his tenure, Michael has run an applied demographic research program, which was designated as Kentucky's official source for population projections, and the state's representative in the Census Bureau's program for population estimates. So those denominators that all of us are using for all of our health statistics, all of our base level information, it comes from Michael's work. He conducts research for state and local governments, other foundations, nonprofit organizations, and private businesses. He's an expert on state and local demography and is often called upon as a public speaker to civic and professional groups across the Commonwealth and occasionally across the internet, as we have him here today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Michael to tell you more about his work and the broader work of the State Data Center.
Sarah, thank you for that introduction. And everyone, it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to talk about the State Data Center. We are the Kentucky State Data Center. We're a service organization of the University of Louisville. And we've been around since 1980. In fact, the Kentucky State Data Center was one of 8 charter members of the National State Data Center program. And what data centers are and what the Census Bureau is and what data are has changed considerably over this time period. And frankly, I've been around to see those changes take place. When we first established the data center, that was before PCs and laptops, and it was a world of mainframe computers and data being on the shelf. And
the good old days.
Pardon me?
The good old days.
The good old days, yeah. And our primary mode of data dissemination during that time period was simply actually looking numbers up and delivering a number to folks, usually over the telephone, via email, via regular mail. That was prior email. But our mission at the Data Center is to assist all citizens in the Commonwealth with obtaining relevant and accurate data in order to make informed decisions. Our client, as Sarah's mentioned, include both corporate and business citizens, nonprofits, state and local governments, as well as private citizens, both individuals and groups. And we promote data dissemination through our website and a number of activities, including direct response to data requests, as I've described as the way we started out, certainly consultation, training seminars, presentations demonstrating data usage and analysis, GIS services, and at a higher level, applied research through the Urban Studies Institute. I'll talk about that a little bit later here. Our philosophy basically has changed somewhat over time, and I think our current website is a demonstration of that change in philosophy, and that before we were very much geared towards handing people the data, giving people essentially the fish. And now our mission, I think, given the nature of data and the changes that have gone along with it, is that we want to guide people and teach them how to fish and how to, we spend more time now assisting folks who aren't aware of how to get to federal resources and our resources, of how to obtain them on their own. You still can call us. We still get calls from grade school students working on their research papers and the like, and we do answer questions directly. But our mission is very much more now to gearing people how to obtain information itself. And that has a lot to do with the nature and the volume of data that's now available out there. To accomplish this goal, we have been, like I said, we were a charter member with the Census Bureau's National State Data Program since 1980. We actually represent the Commonwealth in 3 cooperative programs. As I mentioned, the National State Data Center Program, which is in all states, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, all the Pacific Ocean Protectorates, Guam, and the like, all have data center programs now. And there's also a series of census information centers that are out there that are generally focused on target populations. Maybe they're often located in Indian reservations or areas where there are large disadvantaged populations that can utilize this sort of information to help in their various programs and the like. But we've also been a participant in the Federal State Cooperative Program for Population Estimates, which produces the annual Population Estimate Series, which has accelerated quite a bit over the last few years in terms of the timeliness and release of that data. And we are a long-term and charter member of the Population Projections Program. You go to the Census Bureau produces national projections, but they do not produce state or local projections. And we are the source for state and county level population projections. If you go to the Census Bureau's website and go to Kentucky's projections, it puts you a link back to our website and our projections.
Michael, can you say quickly, what is the difference between an estimate and a projection?
That's a good question, and we get it all the time. An estimate is it's your latest, essentially, count of populations. And they are produced from administrative records, and so they are produced essentially by symptomatic data. The population projections currently heavily rely on, of course, birth and death data, but also they use IRS administrative records and Medicare enrollment records to estimate the population on an annual basis. And so currently the most recent estimates available are for July 2012 and will be, and they're essentially now released in less than a year from the year that estimated data is. For example, we already have 2012 estimates. They've been out for several months now for counties and for the state. And those are available and are renewed on an annual basis. Population projections are data that use assumptions about what population will be into the future. And these then are driven by assumptions. Our current population projections that we released about a year ago were based on the decennial trends revealed from 2000 to the latest 2010 census. And that data we analyzed various components of population change and made assumptions about how those will continue into the future and then project forwardly based on that. So estimates are basically more concurrent estimates of the population that would provide updates, for example, since the last census count. And forecast population projections are those that then take that sort of information, make assumptions about the future, and make population projections based upon that. But back to the data center. And so these programs, there's all kinds of data out there. And so what our current areas of expertise have to do with demographic data and economic data. The demographic data include all the data that are based on essentially people and housing. The sources are the decennial census, population estimates, the American Community Survey, There's a lot of resources available now to measure and get estimates of this sorts of demographic data. We also then have expertise on economic data, whether it's money in terms of wages, income, gross domestic product, workers, labor force, jobs, or firms, and businesses. And those data are also, most of the data that we rely on are from federal surveys or other federal data series. And we have the expertise now at the State Data Center that these are our primary wheelhouses, so to speak, of data. There's other kinds of data available out there, obviously, and the state has a lot of data. And we will help people with environmental data and education data and things like that. But our strong points are demographic and economic data. As I mentioned, our website, and this is the address to our website, is a real reflection, of course, now of our current philosophy and how to access and our current way of guiding people to the data. And I'd like to share with you that website now. Here we go.
We see, there it is.
Okay, I hope everyone can see this. This is our website, and we've had it up for less than a year now. We launched this website last November, I believe. And before, it was heavily loaded with data, and at that time we were trying to keep up with the many data releases from the Census Bureau. And that, frankly, is a redundant and overwhelming task. So what we want to do with our current website is provide, first of all, a portal to who we are. And I think here you can go here and you can identify, essentially find out who we are in terms of staff and expertise. If you click on our staff button, it will take you to a list of our staff, including our director, Dr. Janet Kelly. And the State Data Center currently has a rather unique staffing. We are a combination of faculty, professional staff, and graduate students. And graduate students play a very important role in the data center now. It's also within our service objectives of being a service organization at the University of Louisville. We still operate within the overall objectives of the university in terms of promotion of particularly graduate education. And now we have graduate students, graduate research assistants who work in the data center, are just as much part of the team and make very significant contributions. But here at our staff listing of our website, you can see the individuals, get detailed, get brief descriptions of who we are, detailed biographies, or complete vias if that's necessary. But you would then know and how to contact these individuals directly in terms of seeking out their expertise or their knowledge of various data. And so that's kind of really important that we are just not this website. We are this organization of people and professionals that provide support on various levels of data and how to retrieve data and interpretation of the data. Go back to our home web page here at the end. In terms of other aspects, of course, we can still make direct data requests off of our website. You can simply email us directly using the website portal to make data requests. If you have a specific request, there's still how to access us. It's at the top here, our phone numbers, our email, where you also can directly respond to data requests that way. In terms of going back to our website, in terms of interesting now, what we try to do is provide very important and critical links with our website. Of course, the major portal for accessing information from the Census Bureau now is the American Fact Finder. and we provide direct links here to the American Fact Finder and to some other Census Bureau resources. And that very much now we're in terms of trying to provide critical linkages to the data, and yet behind the scenes, if one is not familiar with these resources or these other portals in terms of accessing the information, they can contact us. We can assist them in and navigate them through such websites. We have you can make a phone call, and the staff member that answers the phone or can respond to messages left can assist you with the navigations of the website. So that's, again, it's more in this philosophy of teaching people how to fish instead of directly handing them the data. In terms of actually what data is available on that website, it's somewhat limited, yet it's unique. It's data that you really will be very difficult to get from other sources. If you go over here to the data menu and actually notice that demographic data, you can click on that. You'll notice that we have a drop-down box that allows you to access data from the decennial censuses, population estimates, population projections, and then vital statistics, birth and deaths that we get from the state and make available on our website. What's unique about this is that, for example, at the decennial census, we can click on that. It takes a moment to open. But on that site, what we've done is compile information on Kentucky and on various levels of Kentucky geography, state, ads, area development districts, counties, cities, and CDPs in some cases. But we've attempted to just have a lot of information that we have, particularly historical information, that it'd be very difficult to locate anyplace else. First of all, we have census counts. These are simply summary data tables that, for example, of total population from 1900 through 2010, every census count. The population by age and sex for state, ad, and counties is available from 1960 to 2010. And for race and Hispanic origins, since those definitions have changed, the only periods that are consistently available historically are the 2000 and the 2010 census. But we have census profiles available here on our website, and we have data going back to the 1980 census. And these are large PDF profiles that are large compilations of data tables, essentially from historically from the 2000, 90, and 80 census. It's from Summary File 3, so it's a detailed socioeconomic characteristics. We have it for the state, ads, counties, cities, and cities, incorporated places, and census-designated places, the CDPs. And currently, we also have a select group of sub-county data. We currently have data for the Louisville Metro Council districts and Louisville neighborhoods. Soon we'll be adding data, these kind of historical profiles for the Lexington Council districts. And we're working with other folks in the state to identify important sub-county data that we can put this historical sort of information there that's not readily available from other sources. Currently, for example, if you go to American Fact Finder, the 2000 census data has already been removed. And so historical data is going to quickly be, because of the volume of data that's coming out from the American Community Survey and other sources, it's becoming less and less available in terms of getting these sorts of historical data.
Well, and not just the archives. I mean, I didn't know that about American Fact Finder, but it's awesome that you guys have ad level data and some of these geographic designations that are important in Kentucky that aren't really recognized at the federal level, that Kentucky Area Development Districts isn't necessarily a unit of analysis that the Census Bureau is concerned with.
You're right, and I think that's certainly one of the things that we wanted to add. We wanted to make sure that the data that we're providing on the data center is unique, that it's not redundant with what the Census Bureau is doing. I mean, the Census Bureau has spent over $1 billion on the American Fact Finder portal. It's an amazing technology that gives us access to a tremendous, volume of data. Those of you who have worked on that realize that. But what we wanted to do is provide data for geographies and for time periods that are becoming more and more difficult to access. And certainly, and you're right, for simply aggregating up to area development districts, while not difficult, it provides data that's readily available. And all of our data series, whether population forecast or population estimates, we aggregate them at least up to the area development districts to provide that data at that level. But this page here in terms of are the data listed under demographic data, whether it be the decennial data or population estimates. And population estimates involve both data that are certainly the population and housing estimates. We have the health insurance estimates and poverty and income estimates that come out from the Census Bureau. And in all these cases, we essentially, if we can, we aggregate such data up to the area development districts. Projections are also available down for state, ad, and counties. We have produced them in detail in terms of age and sex, going out currently to 2050. And birth and death records, we have compiled historical birth and death records. Currently what we have up are simply the counts that go from 1960 through 2011 with preliminary data in more recent years. And the state and the Cabinet for Health and Family Services is still working hard on the vital statistics area, but they're not publishing and releasing the data as much as they used to in the past. And I think that certainly for this level of historical data, I think we're maybe the lone source of getting such information currently. Then the rest, but these are the only real data that you can access off our website. The rest of our drop-down items in our drop-down boxes have to do with information about and access to the other, for example, census surveys, the annual American Community Survey, current population survey, the survey of income and program participation, and the American Housing Survey. These are essentially links to these websites, to how to access and what these data are. This is the American Community Survey's webpage, for example. And let's see.
While we're here, can you comment briefly on what the American Community Survey is relative to the census?
Well, since we're on this page, the American Community Survey is the Census Bureau's ongoing annual survey that provides annual estimates of the population and housing in detail. It has taken the place of what we used to refer to as the long form of the decennial census. If you recall, the 2010 census was only the short form. It was 10 questions, the march to the mailbox. But all the detailed data, the data that's related to nativity, veteran status, labor force status, educational attainment, poverty, income, detailed housing characteristics in terms of housing burdens, characteristics of the housing. These are all now available on an annual basis from the American Community Survey. The American Community Survey has 3 annual releases. It's an ongoing survey, first of all. It's conducted continuously and conducted throughout the country. It's currently about a 2.5%, almost a 3% national sample. And that level of canvassing of the population provides accurate estimates for very large places on an annual basis, and you can get annual estimates of the population, single-year estimates for places 65,000 and above, which includes obviously the state, but just a handful of counties or cities in Kentucky that would meet that population threshold. But for places of 20,000 and above, there are estimates released that are 3 years. Now that's 3 years aggregation of the sample survey. So the currently most released data from the American Community Survey data are for 2011. You can get single year of estimates for 2011, or you can get 3-year data for places of 20,000 above, and currently you can also get 5-year data for all places going down to block groups or cities of any size. But it takes 5-year aggregations of the data to get the sample sizes up more reasonably to produce such estimates. These data, essentially the Bureau is releasing in the fall of the year 3 data releases that are essentially equivalent of a release of the decennial census, but they're doing 3 a year, not once every 10 years. One of the complaints about the census and the detailed census was that it was, although it was very accurate, the data got old over time. And now essentially we should have estimates of the population that are no more than a year old at any point in time. And this ongoing effort has been really a significant enhancement in terms of the data and data availability out there. So the American Community Survey has become an essential tool for many folks. It has changed our way of thinking about demographic data in that if we can get detailed data for places, smaller places, the places where we live on an annual basis, we can really utilize this data then to monitor how we're doing on a much more timely basis. And you can see it incorporated into a lot of efforts, for example, by the state's Department of Education or higher education and looking at educational attainment and how that's changing in the state and getting measures of that essentially every year, not having to wait 10 years before we can actually get updates of such information. The City of Louisville's Greater Louisville Project monitors itself on a number of metrics that are obtained from the American Community Survey. And there's like projects going on throughout the state. It's a very important resource and one that we're there to not only promote the use of, but to help people in understanding and getting the data that may be most appropriate for the level of geography and the time period they're looking at. Okay, let's go back to our web page.
Yes, thank you for indulging me in that digression.
No, not at all. In fact, thank you for the question because, you know, we can talk about who we are, but actually what we are data. So I mean, and what we do is talk about data. With Dr. Janet Kelly's arrival and her direction of the data center, she's an economist, a regional economist, and a CPA, and an applied researcher extraordinaire, in my opinion. So we also provide links about economic data. And of course, these are the economic census that's conducted every 5 years from the Census Bureau, the local employment dynamics, LED, or on the map, which actually uses unemployment insurance data to map where folks live and work and how those dynamics change over time, a very useful tool. Other employment statistics from BLS and BEA, gross domestic product, personal income. All these, you can go to these sites and there are descriptions of the data in terms of their utility, access to the data in terms of links, and of course then we have this expert who you can contact in terms of interpretation of the data, or maybe if you want to take the data farther. Other in our linkage, here we have other links, the Kentucky Kids Count, a project that we work on with the Annie E. Casey Foundation with Kentucky Youth Advocates to produce an annual measurement of how kids and families are doing in the state in our counties and communities on an annual basis. Kentucky Health Facts, we have our link to I think the best link for and resources related to health.
And I didn't even pay him to say that.
And the seated county profiles. These are profiles produced by the University of Kentucky's Department of Agriculture that provide some nifty agriculture and economic profiles for the Commonwealth too. So again, these sorts of that our website, I think, is a reflection of these resources. And like what people do are many times as they go to the website, we encourage people to go and just spin around and click the boxes. I mean, if you haven't spent time, if you don't know what TigerWeb is, there now is an internet access to a mapping capability that accesses all of the Tiger data that you can do essentially reference maps. Soon information was going to be added to this, linking it to the census data that you'll be able to produce thematic maps very easily using these resources from the Census Bureau. Kentucky Quick Facts, if you want the most updated profile for a county, for the state, a county, or a city in the Commonwealth, click on Kentucky Quick Facts. This is a Census Bureau. We're simply linking to the Census Bureau's resource here, but it'll list the latest population estimates, the last population census counts, the latest relevant, most commonly used data from the American Community Survey. Here's the 5-year data on housing, educational attainment. Other data are incorporated into it. There are business data and data from the most recent county business patterns and other data resources incorporated into these profiles. But again, we don't want to be redundant. We just want to and start to just compile data. We want to have resources that are unique and that we're providing links with off of our website. So we encourage people to come, spend time clicking around on our website to just see what the linkages are and how that essentially can be facilitated and operated. I mentioned earlier that we had that certainly one of our activities that's very important is not only these dissemination activities that involve, of course, direct data response to request and our public presentations and our training seminars. We do conduct applied research, and you can contact us. It's when simply the data themselves are not enough. If you need more extensive analysis of the data and the expertise of our professional research staff, you can contact us through this portal. I mean, our brand in Kentucky State Data Center is our contact point. But essentially, the work being done will be done from the Urban Studies Institute. Now, I must explain the relationship between the Kentucky State Data Center and the Urban Studies Institute is a seamless one. The staffs are one and the same. Dr. Janet Kelly is the director of the Urban Studies Institute as well as the State Data Center. And the supporting staff and graduate students are the same. We sit around, we have our weekly meetings, and we talk about the current service missions and things we need to accomplish for the week. But there's also a constant agenda of research projects that we do on a contractual basis with clients in Kentucky. And so it's that extension of the data center and taking it to a higher level in terms of more than just getting the data, but analysis and assistance with that can be made through the data center as a contact to work with us as the Urban Studies Institute. Hope that's not too weird, but that's essentially we divide the pie up that way to essentially our data center is certainly our brand, and it's our access point to the resources at the university in our service mission, but it also then provides us an access point for those who need more applied research. And applied research includes, of course, demographic analysis, but a broad range of economic work, including economic impact analysis for example, for the recent, in terms of recent Medicaid expansion, the Urban Studies Institute provided the economic impact of what the expansion of Medicaid would be in terms of this upcoming year, and was utilized in part of the justification for the governor's decision to expand. And so we encourage. So again, it's the understanding that this our professional staff, who's listed here under staff, is also that of the Urban Studies Institute.
But it's nice that even those of us who are focused on rural studies can get assistance from you all.
Oh, urban is just because that's where we're located. There was a historic thing it's there. That's true. I mean, we do have projects going on throughout the state. And for the state as a whole, for the tourism cabinet, they've recently done an economic impact study. The distillers and the Kentucky Hospital Association have worked essentially now with the Urban Studies Institute for applied research. Okay, well, Sarah, do we have any questions coming in?
I'll give folks a minute to type their questions into the chat box. This has been a wonderful fishing lesson for us, so if anybody has any questions while we still have the fishing expert on the phone, that's what we're trying to learn here. But I was really impressed by the breadth of economic data that you all have on the site.
Again, the data itself is not on the site, but we have description of the data and then linkages to the data. And certainly some of those federal sites are not as easy to navigate as others, but we do have staff that's quite experienced in it. And LED, the local employment dynamics portal, and that on-the-map resource that the Census Bureau and the Bureau of Labor Statistics are providing, it's a great resource, but it may not be intuitive right off the bat for users, but we have staff that have kind of mastered it. It can provide the profiles and provide other assistance in detail. So we're encouraging folks to look at what resources are available, and that if our linkages are still not getting you there, we're encouraging you to contact us directly to provide assistance with that.
That's great, because certainly anybody on the line that works in the area of social determinants of health, you may call it employment data and economic data, but to us that is health data, that certainly impacts the health of individuals in the Commonwealth. So it's important that we figure out how to access it. We do have another question about how often and where are trainings offered to further dig into this data and learn how to use these tools. And are there any tools kind of on the site that can help us interpret maps we may not be familiar with?
Good question. We have an annual training meeting that's conducted in the fall. And with this new website, this will be one of the ways that we will promote and advertise that. It's usually we encourage our affiliates to come to the meeting, but to come to that meeting, we generally bring in an expert from the Census Bureau to show us something new out of their toy box there. Or when the Census Bureau sets up training sessions that they take on the road, we try to facilitate them by providing space and access. We do that in Louisville and have done it in other locations throughout the state. For example, the economic census folks had a training session they took on the road, and we facilitated a training session at the University of at one of the meeting places at the University of Louisville a year ago. There's a resource at the Census Bureau called Data Ferret. It's a cute name. It's an acronym. something there, but the data ferret actually is a very nifty tool that allows researchers to direct access to the Census Bureau servers. And essentially, then you can access the data directly, multiple servers, without having to download large data files, onto your own computer and the like. And we are bringing someone in from the Bureau for a training session that we hope to pull off this summer. We haven't got the scheduling yet on data ferret specifically. And at any time, you can contact us and we can come to any special group and provide individualized training about American Fact Finder, if you have a specific topic, or generally about our website and federal resources. Our specific, just have an organized, we've had some groups request that we just provide individual training on American Fact Finder and what level of resources are there. The Census Bureau is adding more and more data series to that, not only decennial census, the American Community Survey, population estimates are now there. They're adding more data series there all the time, and we can provide training to small or large groups. We met, and we've done it with public groups. We met with a business real estate group recently in Lexington to promote the use of the American Community Survey and to how to navigate their site and get the kind of data they want. So we do have some we do have some set sessions. There's one in the fall, our annual meeting, that we are opening up to the public and into our data users. But one can contact us directly, and we can set up customized training.
That's a great option to have. Thank you for mentioning it. And the existing trainings that you offer, do you all have like a listserv or newsletter, or how do we find out about those?
Well, we do have a listserv currently. We don't have it active currently.
Okay.
We haven't gotten all our act together since we've opened this website. Currently, we hope that we're going to use this. Essentially, this splash box up here is where we've been advertising our conferences and the like on the website. We don't have any currently advertised. We don't have it scheduled yet. But right now, that's how one would access it. We hope to get here operational soon, our listserv back up again, and respond with some sort of electronic communication with data users, the data user community out there.
Okay, very cool. And you briefly mentioned the affiliates. Can you say more about who they are and how they might be a resource for folks?
Well, I mean, the affiliate concept went back to the original formulation of the State Data Center. And you have to realize in 1980, the data centers involved were small libraries. And what we were combining, the resource were books, were volumes of census data. And if one wanted census data, they essentially had to call or come and look up whatever they wanted to do in the book. That's before any sort of online retrieval. The affiliates were set up under that sort of model, that you would have then these small library sort of operations around the state where anybody could go and access the census information. They were often associated with public libraries or university libraries, but some other organizations over time, such as area development districts and the like, became affiliates. Now the affiliates are, of course, that model is obsolete. What we hope to do now, we do directly contact the affiliates about our meetings. They're the one in terms of specialized training sessions. We hope that they become the local trainers instead of the one, again, that we have people that are teaching people how to fish all around the state as opposed to those who just handing them the fish. So it's essentially been an extension of that. It's maybe because now we live in this cyber world and people have access to to the resources. Frankly, demography used to be a very expensive, large-scale enterprise that required mainframes and punch cards and all that. Well, now it's a garage-based industry where anybody can access the data from their iPad or laptop and actually do much of the analysis at that level. So we're hoping, the affiliates, we want to keep them abreast of what the resources at the Bureau are and what changes there are at the Bureau in terms of resource availability and the like. So the affiliates now essentially become the extension of that in that way, but they're not. That initial function of being the local libraries is an obsolete model now.
Cool. Well, I'm not seeing additional questions come in, so I think we've, unless anybody is furiously typing, I think we've addressed most of the questions. So I'll just close by saying thank you again, Michael. This has been really informative. I'm surprised. I used to work, 20 feet down the hall from Michael, and I still learned an awful lot today. So I hope this was useful for everyone, and that you will be burning up the Kentucky State Data Center servers and nosing around their website to learn more. But thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the conference call for today. We thank you for your participation and ask that you please disconnect your lines. Have a good day, everyone.